Twins left. Check zone. Check zone. All right, we're going to get Brown, 570, wide curl on 2.
4-3 step, smash strong. Open cannon, Mike Pop. Hello and welcome to In the Huddle. I'm your host, JT Thomas, broadcasting live from Saberton Station. I'm here every Wednesday from 6 to 7. If you don't catch me here, make sure you check me out on Thursday on thedpost.com. Joining me, my host, as they have been for the last couple weeks, we have Alex Shook, 1987 to 1991. My good friend, Avery Big Tone Richardson, 1991 to 1992. Gentlemen, let's break the huddle.
Absolutely.
Guys, I want to start this off because we have some breaking news that we probably need to get out of the way because it will impact our further discussions.
Absolutely.
Hate to break this news, but earlier today we got notice that Carl Joseph is out for the season. Certainly hate to see that. Carl's been such a great player for us, and it's gonna be very, very impactful to us. I just want to quickly share with you the kind of impact that Carl has had to the Mountaineers over the last couple of years. Carl Joseph has started 42 straight starts. He's racked up over nearly 350 plays. He's racked up nearly 300 tackles in his career. 17 TFLs. TFL stands for tackle for a loss. He had 2 sacks, 9 INTs, 5 of which you've had this season. 14 pass breakups, 8 forced fumbles, and 6 fumble recoveries.
Wow.
Guys, that's a lot of defense that we're going to be losing with this guy out. I mean, we saw how important he was, the game against Oklahoma.
Absolutely.
It's a tragic loss. I'll let you guys just kind of share your thoughts on losing him at this point in the season.
I think beyond all those numbers, we're losing his leadership. He was the leader of that defense. He was the best player on our team, pretty much hands down this year. And really, my heart goes out to him personally. Obviously, it's going to affect the team, but my heart goes out to him personally that all these violent collisions guy has been in and supposedly tore his knee, MCL, ACL, PCL, and a non-contact drill. So just goes to show you never know, and hopefully he had some type of insurance to take care of that if it's going to affect his ability to move forward into the pros, because that's a devastating injury. It's a potentially career-threatening injury. You were saying,
that's sad, Alex. And outside of football, nice young man, probably one of the finest young men I've been around with outside my boys. But he would come to the football camp, speak to the local youth. Always preach school was first, number one priority. So he, outside of football, he was also a great guy, and he will truly be missed. And I will miss him. I wish that young man a speedy recovery.
Speedy recovery.
Absolutely.
I agree. Carl, I tell you, my friend, the Mountaineer Nation is certainly feeling for you right now. They're certainly with you. You'll always be someone special to this organization. Godspeed, man, and we hope that you recover well and have a long career if you're able to come back. You've been a tremendous player for us. As Alex mentioned, you've been a tremendous person for us more than anything else, and the Mountaineers will never, ever forget that. To Carl Joseph, thank you.
Absolutely.
Guys, we had a tough week last week. We started WVU versus Oklahoma. We played them this October 3rd in Norman. Let me tell you a little bit about Bob Stoops, ranked number 15th in the nation, 3-0 before the Mountaineers were able to see him. The funny thing about this Oklahoma team, man, in the series, we're 5-2 against them in the series. In the last couple years, we haven't beat them. Coach Holgerson is 3-0 against them. We knew that it was going to be tough going to Norman with playing in that environment, playing with the history that we have against the Sooners. Alex, what do you think was some of the things that probably have gotten us off track or started wrong for us early in the game?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. I look at this as almost like an old Clint Eastwood movie.
Okay.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. I guess you're asking what went bad early on. You look at defensive statistics. It looked like we played okay until you get down to guy only had 14 completions. We had, 2 turnovers, 4 sacks. We held that running game in check.
Yes, sir.
Guy had 14 completions. 10 of them went for more than 15 yards. I mean, it looked like a track meet in the secondary, and that was certainly nothing that we expected. We expected our secondary to be locked down, and maybe we can back off of the best secondary in the history of the team for a couple of weeks and see how we do against Oklahoma State and Baylor and TCU. But we really had some trouble covering guys for whatever reason, miscommunications, big stadium. But it was ugly, and I think that was really got us off track defensively. And offensively, one of the things that we've been preaching about how good Skylar Howard was is he protected the ball.
Yes. Right. Yes.
And we had 5 turnovers and a 6 that was called back and 7 sacks. So, those things certainly fall in the bad and in the ugly. And we talked about Oklahoma. They're a great program.
Right.
Yes.
I don't know if this is a great team or not that's going to win the national championship, but they got great players, great coaches, great fans. Their band's good. They got that neat little mascot. Their cheerleaders are pretty. We talked about when you go play a program like that, you got to have your A game. You got to almost play flawless. And
that's right.
7 sacks, 5 turnovers, 11 penalties is not going to get it done on the road at Oklahoma.
Absolutely.
Right. What do you say, Tom?
One of the things that I noticed being a former defensive line is that I like our aggressiveness. I thought we was very aggressive, but penalties really, really hurt us. You cannot beat a good team by committing that many penalties and that many turnovers. So I remember the young guys on the back end was telling me before the game, our defensive backs are called a no-fly zone, meaning that we don't give up passes. Well, you know what? That didn't happen on Saturday.
We got to hold air traffic control.
That didn't happen on Saturday, man. They telling me no-fly zone won't happen, and they kind of took it to us in the air. So hopefully we can regroup and get ready for next week.
Tom, you point out one thing that was detrimental to the game, and that was penalty.
Yes, sir.
And if you think about it and you hear about all the commotion that went on during pregame and all those things where we seem to be very chippy with this team. And that's just, I'm not sure if that was the best thing in terms of you expending energy, you're getting yourself overly excited. I mean, certainly I understand, I've done it, I've been there.
Sure.
But you have to be able to transfer all that energy and all that focus into the game. And when you lose sight of that, when you lose sight of being focused on the game and mindful of what's going on around you, you see some of the things that happen in our game.
I agree.
Let me speak to what Alex talked about in terms of statistics. Statistically, we did well. The Mountaineers rushed for 196 yards. OU rushed for 107. We went down there and did exactly what we wanted to do. We talked about stopping Samaj Pernin. We did that. Now, here's the problem. In the passing game, we're traditionally, we've for the most part, for the last couple of games, we've averaged nearly 300 yards. This particular game, we passed for 173 yards. Oklahoma passed for 320 yards on our defense. The totals are 369 yards for West Virginia, 427 yards total offense for Oklahoma. What's staggering about this, West Virginia possessed the ball for 33 minutes. OU possessed the ball for 37 minutes. So we had the ball longer than they did, but yet we did not have the results that we thought that we would have had. I know this is, when we think about this, fans, for the most part, look at that stat or look at the statistics and wonder what happened. What does happen when a team seems to have the ball more, seems to have a game plan going in, but doesn't execute with a score and with statistics like that, Alex?
Yeah, I think a lot of that had to do with field position. It seemed like we were always deep down in our territory and giving it back to them. It started out early in the game. We fielded a punt inside the 5-yard line, which just blows my mind that you were starting to see some special teams errors come back again. And that really flipped the field in favor of Oklahoma right off the bat. And it just seemed like we could never get out of that hole in terms of field position. And then we had a strip sack for a touchdown on their end, and we ran the ball. We held them in the running game. That was my big concern, is that they were bulldozers, kind of like they did last year. So we controlled the clock. We did what we wanted to do with the running games at times, but I think when we started trying to force it downfield, it just wasn't happening. They got some special outside guys, the Striker kid and the Clapper kid. They can get to the quarterback, and our guys didn't show a lot of composure on the line, and Skylar didn't do a great job. So, I think it goes coaching, Skylar, line. There's plenty of blame to go around for, the way the offense had some good statistics, but weren't able to finish the game.
Right.
JT, one of the things that I heard, and I'm going to pass this along to you, and you tell me what you think. When watching that game, one of my former coaches had said to me that after watching a lot of the West Virginia games and watching Skylar Howard, he said the best defense to stop Skylar Howard is to play a cover 2. I was like, really? Cover 2? Make him throw.
Right.
Because they said everything he throws over the middle is high.
Right.
And everything he throws deep is too long.
Right.
What is the best defense to play for in that?
Right.
Cover 2.
Right.
So until Skylar can show us that he can throw the ball, we're going to see a lot of cover 2 defenses in the future. So hopefully we can get that taken care of.
Right. And you're right in terms of what I thought about Howard, and I said this from the very beginning, that he needed to be a bonus player for this football team. We just can't rely on him passing the ball. He has to be able to escape outside and extend plays. I know I mentioned that. In fact, I was on Twitter and I tweeted to Pat White about how important it was for Skylar to be a bonus player. And he tried. I have to give that to him. He tried, but it just wasn't there. When you have guys that are rushing the passes like the striker kid, one of the best in the nation at doing that, it's very, very hard to get outside of them. And if we don't hold them, I almost think back to the Don Nillen days. It would almost been better for us to do some draws here and there because that team was rushing up the field so fast because they were interested. They knew that Skylar would sit in that pocket, and if he was flushed, he was flushed to guys that could potentially catch it.
That's right.
So in that instance, I would almost rather have us do draws or some sort of counter where we come in the back against where the pursuer is coming from. So to your coach's point, a cover 2 in regard to dealing with us, he's right. He's right because that makes you have to throw the ball in a certain area.
That's right.
And if you're not on, you're not on. A couple of weeks ago, Gary Tompkins was here. And what did he say? Well, last week, what did he say? He said, JT, I'm worried about us hitting the dig routes. And that's where we were susceptible this week. Okay. We did not hit the dig routes. And for the fans who want to tell you what the dig route is, that's when the receiver comes across the middle of the field, and he usually is catching the ball between the middle of the linebackers. We missed those this time. We got to be able to hit those to be successful. Anytime we don't, it causes us to want to throw long throw passes that are ill-advised. You just don't want to have that. We have to be able to hit those dig routes. Alex, you're a former receiver. Tell me how important it is to hit those kind of routes and what that does for the confidence of a quarterback.
Well, it opens it up for everybody else primarily, and it opens it up for the running game. But it's hard for Skylar to be accurate when he's getting sacked 7 times and on the run the whole game. And it doesn't all fall on his shoulders. And the interceptions aren't all his fault when his guys aren't getting open, the guys aren't blocking for him. The coaches are calling these plays. I think Coach Holgerston candidly admitted they tried to force the ball downfield when we should have relied a little more on the running game. I thought we were controlling the line of scrimmage at times, which was very encouraging, one of the good things that I saw. So, it doesn't start and end with Skylar Howard. It's a total team effort, and he's got to move forward from this.
I agree with you. I want to share quickly some of the statistics that we have before I go into my trivia questions. Smallwood rushed for 116 yards. That's the second time that he's rushed for more than 100 yards, back-to-back games. The sad part was that we just mentioned Skylar was 17 to 32, and was sacked. Had three interceptions and was sacked 7 times. We only had 2 rushing touchdowns. I think it's so important for us to be successful in the run game to be able to be productive in that game. Before I let you guys answer that question, I want to go ahead and ask a few trivia questions moving forward. And when I get back, we'll get right back to you. So fans, it's that time again. It's that time again. And before I do that, I want to introduce Scott Dixon, 1981 to 1984. He's the senior on the board, and he'll definitely be able to add some. He'll be able to add some.
How to take that? That senior stuff.
Scott, you the more seasoned. The more seasoned.
I like seasoned a lot better than senior.
Okay.
I'm getting close to the old age.
I hear you. Okay. So, what we're going to do, as I mentioned every week here, we have a trivia question where we give away something. And it's so important to get down here and get on time. And we're going to give out these koozies. And I want to first and foremost tell you where we give these out every week. We're here at Saberton Station. We're here every Wednesday from 6 to 7. And again, remember, if you don't catch me here, always go to thedpost.com and look in the football section. You'll find me there every time. So here's my first question. And I always make sure I make these questions that you can get. Now, to be noticed, what you have to do is raise your hands so we can get the mic over to you. So if you got the answer to this question, make sure you raise your hand so we can get the mic over to you. Listen closely. And since we have an upcoming game with Oklahoma State, this is the Oklahoma State sort of West Virginia question. Pay attention. Who was the starting tailback for the Oklahoma State Cowboys? Robert Walker and Jimmy Gary, or Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders?
The first one.
That would be incorrect. The first one was Robert Walker and Jimmy Gary. The second would be Thurman Thomas or Barry Sanders.
We just gave the answer.
I gave the answer. See, I told you, I literally want to give these things away. So I may give these to a few people randomly. But again, we're going to get back to these stats. But since I mentioned that, I was made privy to an interesting fact about the Oklahoma State Cowboys. And I want to well, you know what, Alex? I'll wait till we get into the Oklahoma State stuff, and then we'll get right back to that.
Got it.
Cool. All righty, guys. Again, I just want to remind you, we're here every Wednesday from 6 to 7 here at Saberton Station. You got something to add?
No, just wanted to say, you know, it's going to be a very intense game against Oklahoma State. I think right now, I think it's going to be very, very important for us to keep our intensity level all the way up. You know, coming off that loss, it was a great loss for us. A lot of things are going on, and as far as the ball club is concerned, I think the morale has to get up at this point here. Our practices have to be real intense this week. You know, we got a tough schedule. You know, we're looking at a lot there. I think the sportscasts are already projected that we're coming into what they refer to as a skid row, you know. But at some point, we have to begin to turn this around. It has to be a turnaround point. Oklahoma has a good team. It has a good front. You know, we're going to have to play tough ball. We made a lot of mistakes against Oklahoma. We got to make some corrections now. We
want to point that out, because what I want to talk about is the production, how important it is going to be for us to be productive. Coming in, before the break, I talked about the statistics of the player. I talked about Smallwood. Yeah. I talked about Howard being 17 of 32, 3 interceptions and being sacked 7 times.
Right.
Scott, how is this team gonna recover from statistics like that in terms of, you know, we typically see our running backs, you know, averaging close to 100 yards, both running backs. We didn't have a receiver that went over 70 yards this game. How are we gonna come back from that?
I think the first thing we have to really mention the fact that we know that Skyler is actually, in terms of his whole passing game, I think right now he's 193.6 passing efficiency, you know, and having that type of flow and being up on those type of levels, I think that one thing we have to do, they got to stay on their blocks. They got to really stay on their blocks. They're going to have to really, really block hard up front and give this guy some time to make some connections. He's not going to be able to make those passes out, and we're not going to be able to have a good running game if these guys don't really fire off the ball. They're going to fire off the ball, and they got to make some things happen in terms for us to, you know, to really win.
You know, I agree with that 100%. I think, you know, early on we talked about this. The person that affected or caused a lot of problems for us, this Striker kid, Eric Striker.
Absolutely.
One of the leading rushers here in the Big 12. Kid came in and just disrupted the backfield, causes a lot of problems.
Yep.
But on the flip side of that, I want to talk about our ability to stop the run game. We actually did that. Samaj Pernin rushed for only 66 yards. So I would have to say that we did good there.
Yes. Yeah.
However, but I said this many times when asked this during the week. What happened in terms of there was a lot of focus on us stopping the run.
Yes.
But in doing so, I think we kind of compromised our ability to cover in the secondary. With Baker Mayfield being 14 to 25, throwing for over 320 yards. That's something that's not typically heard of in the near future in terms of what our secondary has been able to do. What were some of the key things that, why I ask this question is a lot of people are thinking or saying the secondary shouldn't be placed on the island. We were committed to stopping the run. We put our DBs on an island. What were some of the things that we could have done to really help those guys, not in terms of being on the island or being more productive in the pass defense?
Sack the quarterback.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the number
You're
one
right.
thing.
Absolutely.
Get more pressure on the guy. But listen, in this league, you're going to have to put your DBs out on an island because every one of these teams have fantastic offenses, and that's life in the Big 12. That's life in the NFL. Your defensive backs have to be able to cover man to man. You got to get pressure on the quarterback, and if you can't do that, they're going to do things to you like Oklahoma did to us because they've got fantastic skill. And guess what? Oklahoma State does, and Baylor does, and TCU does. They all have fantastic skill at the quarterback position, at the wide receiver position. So, this game is going to have to be an aberration if we're going to win some games going forward. If it's the way our secondary is going to play, then things don't look good, particularly in the immediate future in these 3 games we have coming up because they're going to have to play on an island. That's the way this defense plays.
Right. I agree. Tom, what you think? Tom, I'll say this, Tom, because when you were here last time, you said this, JT. You said, I want to see a pass rush.
Yeah.
You said, I want to see a pass rush. And when we weren't getting to the quarterback, it seemed like we have a 3-man rush going on, all I could do is think about Tone sitting here saying, I want to see a pass rush. We didn't get that rush, Tone. I mean, what we got to do?
No, you know what, JT? And I'm going back to what Alex said earlier. That last time that running back ran kind of, he had a lot of yards against us last time. So I kind of figured that one of the things we was going to do was kind of have our defensive linemen control their gaps and take away the run, which we did. But I also thought we had the ability to turn on that pass rush. And sometimes when I sat back there, he had a little bit too much time. But, one thing about this young man, his escapability was very good.
Yeah.
He has that innate skill. Let's understand, this kid is not a scholarship big-time player. He's a walk-on. Right. He was at Texas Tech. He left Texas Tech. He came here to Oklahoma. The other kid, Knight, was supposed to be that guy. He beat Knight out in the spring. He got the job as the #1 guy, and he's for real.
Right.
So when you got a quarterback like that, you got to be disciplined. You got to stay in your rush lanes and your pass lanes to get to him. And he kept a lot of plays going. Even when we did have him at times, he was able to move around and make plays. So it's hard when you have a quarterback that is very mobile, and he's a very mobile guy.
Is he on scholarship yet?
He better be. I got a scholarship
I've
for
been
him.
waiting.
He needs to be.
Yeah, I'm not going to suit up for practice until I have a scholarship.
That's right. That's what he said.
Scott, let me move because this is a scenario that played out in my head, and this is all I was saying in the game. You tell me how important and how effective this was. With that 3-man front, it's very, very challenging to be able to get to that quarterback. I've said this time and time again, when we had Chris Neal here, Chris had the ability to be able to cause 2 guys to block him. We haven't had that yet. And when we don't have that, what pops in my mind as a former linebacker, Scott, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is gaming up the defensive line. What I mean by gaming up the defensive line, combination stunts, twist, something where we're bringing the linebacker in inside out. And I know we do that in terms of sending some of the linebackers. Typically in that 3-3-5, there always is a linebacker blitzing. But what we're not getting is any kind of upfront game in terms of twist, slant, anything of that nature. How important is that for a defensive line to be able to stun up and get to that quarterback?
Well, you talk about a guy like Darian Howard, a guy who got an explosive power. The kid plays with tenacity. One of the things it is that we're going to have to do on defense, we're going to have to control that front line, and it's okay because that 3-5 is a good defense, but it doesn't necessarily You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily do the job. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know if Richard, I mean, he's a linebacker, and Tony knows what I'm talking about. Man, they're going to have to keep the running back and keep the outside off of the linebackers. Give these guys the opportunity to run lateral and make some plays, get some penetration. If they're not able to do that, then guess what? They're going to get into our linebackers, and then they're going to throw the ball right probably behind our head. But if these guys can get off the line, and they can, you know, like you said, and cause these guys to double team them and do that. I mean, the guys like Darian who can do that. You know, we got some guys on the line who can make some things happen. Christian Brown, you know what I mean, Kyle Rose. These guys who are able to get up off the ball and penetrate. We got to penetrate the line of scrimmage this week. We're not going to be very effective, but we can't get behind the line of scrimmage, make some plays, cause some tackle for losses, and get in that quarterback face. You're talking about a kid, man. I mean, you know, you talk about this kid here, Mason Randolph. I mean, the kid, man, has an arm. He has a pistol. He can throw the ball. He can hurt us. And one of the things that I found out to be true, hey, man, we got to keep these guys, we got to keep a guy like Randolph out of the middle. If he throws that ball in the middle, we're going to be hurting. We're going to be hurting because guess what? They went right down the pipe. They went straight at that goal pole, and they caught a lot of passes on the Oklahoma. They kind of hurt us on the inside.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, guys, this is the kind of insight that I've been hoping that we have. You know, Scott and I, we both come from that 4-4. You probably did a 4-3 defense too. So we're used to. In fact, a lot of the Big 12 teams they have a 4-3 style defense. That 4-3, you got four big guys coming at you, man, and it's hard to defend. And for us to have the 3-3-5 or whatever version we have, it becomes challenging. But let me do this. I'm ready to give these away again. I'm ready to give them away again. So make sure you pay attention. And I'm not sure what if I'm saying the name correct, but I think they call a koozies. Remember, anytime we do these trivia questions, you have to raise your hand so we can get you the mic. And again, pay very close attention to some of these questions that I have for you. Close attention. But let me remind you, I'm here every Wednesday here at the Suburban Station from 6 to 7. Question of the day. What is the start time of this weekend's game? Listen closely. Is it 12 noon, 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m., or 7 p.m.? I got one. I got to raise your hand. I got the gentleman back right behind you. 7 p.m. All right, sir, you're absolutely right. You will get one of these koozies. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Again, I want to remind you, we're at Saberton Station here every Wednesday from 6 to 7. Guys, you know, we talked about our offense, and we talked about what Oklahoma did to the Mountaineers. I want to quickly just go through some of the things that were positive in terms of our defense. Nick Kitakowski registered 11 tackles, followed up by K.J. Dillon, who registered 7. And our man, Carl Joseph, registered 5 tackles and went on to have 1 interception, making his career interceptions total of 5. Guys, the big question for our defense is, where do we go from here? I mean, this was probably one of our worst outings in terms of starting Big 12 play that we've had in a long time. Obviously, some people are thinking it's a morale issue. I don't. I think this kind of thing happens, and when it happens, it makes the defense dig down and figure out what they got to do. Alex, what does the defense have to do, or what are their mindset needs to be moving forward?
I think the quarterback's got to have short memories, and they can't become gun-shy out there. Those guys are going to be on the island like we talked about. Chestnut and Worley are going to have to cover. We're going to have to find, I guess, Jeremy Tyler is probably the next man up at Carl Joseph's position, so he's going to have to step in there and play big.
Absolutely.
K.J. Dillon has been playing well for us, got to continue to play well for us. And, you know, I see it more of a secondary issue and a pass rush issue. And these are mistakes that were made that are correctable mistakes. There were calls that weren't getting in. They said they had a couple different miscommunications. So those types of things are correctable.
Right.
And we know that Chestnut and Worley are capable of being good cover corners.
Right.
So, you know, they got to forget it like it never happened and come out, because they're going to have another fantastic set of wide receivers to contend with and a good quarterback and the Mason Rudolph fella. So Bury that film, get rid of it, do whatever you got to do, watch it, learn from it, and move on to the next one.
I agree. What you got for me, Tom?
Well, you know what? One thing I found out about college football, you're better to lose early than to lose late.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping that these guys can take their mistakes that they made, correct them, and get ready for Oklahoma State team, which is a very good team. Speaking of Tony Gibson, one thing that Tony does, he will have those guys ready.
Yep.
I think they'll be ready, JT. I think we have a good showing against Oklahoma State.
I agree. I mean, again, I just want to reiterate, oftentimes we've been successful. We were 3-0 heading into this game. We were a little chippy early. This kind of game is the kind of game that kind of makes you reflect and think internally, okay, well, look, I need to tighten my chin strap up a little tighter this time. I need to be more aware of my surroundings a little bit more this time. I think that's all it is. I mean, you cannot get rattled, and I'm sure you know, Scott, you can't get rattled first conference game, and it doesn't go as well as you like. This is not to say that our defense is any worse off than they were before.
Right.
In fact, I think we have a talented defense, and with the exception of losing Carl Joseph, I think our guys will find an opportunity and find a reason to battle moving forward. What do you say moving forward in regard to our defense?
Well, I'm going to have to piggyback off my man here, Swoop, because I think at some point here, man, you talk about Daryl Worley coming in and being a replacement, for Carl Joe. There's big shoes to fill. Let's just be real. I mean, the guy's phenomenal. He's a phenomenal player. But at some point here, I really believe in my heart that if we're going to win the game, man, we're going to actually win it in the secondary. Because they're going to pick on us. The first thing is going to be a sore eye. They're going to come and say, hey, look, Carl's not in the middle. Hey, let's go ahead and throw the ball down the pipe. And one of the things I told you, we have to keep these guys out of the middle because we're real tender there. And without their leader back there, of course, there's going to be some things that's going to take place in terms of they're going to try to throw the ball on us. And if they're successful in that first half, man, it's going to be a long night for the Mountaineers. So I think at some point we really do need to make sure we take away the passing game. If we're going to do anything on defense, I don't think personally they can run the ball on us. I don't think we got a big front. Whether we're in a 3-5 or 4-3 or 3-4, it doesn't matter. I think we got some guys that are really good athletes. I think they're going to execute real well on the front line. But I think our linebackers and our defensive backs is what's going to allow us to either win the game or lose the game. And, man, we're going to have to fly around, have some fun. But I think at some point these guys are going to have some big plays. They're going to have some big plays on defense. They're going to have to, we got to get some pressure on that front line. They got to get inside, get in front of Rudolph's face. They got to make them. We got to get some hairy throws. Let's get this guy to panic in the Mountaineer Stadium, and let's make them lose their game. We got to make these guys lose their game. Because we're talking a big time. Oklahoma State is just not no chumps on the block.
No.
These guys are going to come in here. They're going to be swarmed up. They're already psyched up. They already had the speech. They already had the intensity talk. We got to go in here, put these guys to bed, and put them to bed early.
Scott, I agree with you 100%. Guys, it's so important for us to understand as fans. I hate to see it. I just hate to see it when we have a loss and we get that question about are we who we thought we were. We absolutely are. We absolutely are a good team. We are just in the process of getting in the big league play. We'll win some, we'll lose some. Of these guys will always come out on the backside as Mountaineers. Don't have a problem with that. Want to move right into our Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State just came off of a great win for them against Kansas State. That was a great game for college football. Came down to the wire. They pulled away. As you just mentioned, this guy, Mason Randolph. Let's talk about this kid. The kid has passed for over 1,700 yards. He's only had 4
season.
Thus far. The kid is 14 4 interceptions so far. It's been 8 sacks 8 times. Well, no, I'm on something else.
Okay.
But the kid, Mason Randolph, is a kid that we gotta pay close attention to. Alex, what do we have to do to stop Oklahoma State?
Sack him. I think that's we got to get to this guy. He's a big, tall guy, and that's going to be the key.
Absolutely.
Get in his face. Not let him stand back there unmolested and picking apart our secondary.
That's right.
Our defensive backs obviously have to play a lot better in coverage, but this guy's not nearly as mobile as the Baker
That's
Mayfield
right.
fellow was.
I agree with
So,
you.
I think this is a guy that we can get after. That our blitz packages can get to this
That's
guy.
right,
When
Alex.
we get our hands on him,
I
he's a
agree.
big guy. We
Yeah.
got to get him down on the ground.
Get him on the ground. You know, one thing about a guy like this quarterback we're facing now, from what I've seen, is that you know where he's going to be at as a defensive lineman or a defensive end, meaning that he's not going to be all over the place. He's going to drop back 3-step, 5-step, 7-spot. He's going to be right behind the center. So you kind of know that. So that'll be good for us. Going back to what Scott said, we're missing our leader back there, that intimidating force back there. So I don't want guys to step out their boundaries and do things that they normally don't do. You know what I'm saying, JT? They're going to say, well, you know, a call's not here, so I want to be that guy. I just need you to play your role. You know, play your role, and I think we'll be fine.
Right.
You know, Oklahoma State's 23rd in the country right now. This is not an easy game.
Right.
But then again, what game is easy in the Big 12?
Right.
It's a
You're
big-time
absolutely right.
schedule.
It's an
you know what I mean?
opportunity, too.
It is an opportunity to show what we got. So, you know, if we go in there and play Mountaineers and we get our fans behind us at home, it's going to be a beautiful night for Mountaineer football, a beautiful night. Let's go out there and play ball.
I agree. Scott, what you got for me?
Well, Randy Child, we got to focus on him, man. We're gonna have to probably wrap this kid up early. You know, he's a great running back. You know, he's made some pretty
How
good
many yards he
accolades.
got?
Huh?
How many yards he got?
I think he's
About 1,000?
5'10". This kid runs. He's averaging at least about 10 yards every time, about 5, 6, 7, 7
that's
every time he
not
touches
good.
the ball.
So,
I
yeah.
mean, the kid's good. I mean, he runs the ball real well. I think our biggest problem right here is the kid likes to break on the outside. He likes to run up the rail. Let's go ahead and take that away. Make him stay inside. I think right now, if we really need, and it's important for us to understand, we're going to have to really contain this guy. The guy has some speed. You know what I mean? He's a young kid. He's a junior, and you know he's already got prominent in mind, and he's probably thinking, "Hey, man, I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna run up and down the field on these Mountaineers." But if we can take his heart early, and really wrap our arms around him, man, kind of take that speed down a little bit, let him know, "Hey, man, you're in the Mountaineer Stadium." That's right. You know, and we got to smack him. He got to get hit. We got to put that right there on Childs real early, because if we don't, man, this guy's he can run all over the place.
Right.
You know what I mean? He can run all over the place.
You know, offensively, and in regard to their offense and our defense, we'll find a way to get it done. The one thing that's I wouldn't say scary to me, but I have to make sure that I put an asterisk by it and be mindful of this young man right here, Emmanuel Ogbe.
Yep.
Has 8 sacks. This kid has 8
boy.
sacks right now. So he's coming off. He's in the top, one of the top leaders in the Big 12 in terms of sacks. This kid is the real deal. I mean, we had a lot of trouble with Stryker.
Yes.
It's going to be important that we know what this guy
Got
is
blocked.
throughout the game.
We had a big problem.
Emmanuel Ogbe. It's going to be very, very interesting and very important for the Mountaineers to know where that guy is at all times. On the opposite side of him, this other kid by the name of Jimmy Bean. You gotta watch and know these kids. Jimmy Bean and Emmanuel Ogbe. We got to be able to watch these guys. Currently, also OSU right now is in rushing right now. They're ranked number 2. In the pass defense, they're ranked number 3. So this team is a team that we have to be mindful of. Before we go any farther, I got some questions that were emailed in to us that I want to get the panel to answer. So without further ado, I want to read the first question. And this question comes from Alfredo Bowen. And the question is, why not go with the backup QB when the last week was out of reach? When last week was out of reach. So the question again, why not go with the backup QB when this gentleman believes the game was out of reach last week?
I don't think that's a good message you want to send to your team this early in the season.
Right.
You know, you don't want to
Tell him, Tony.
Okay, well, you know what? If you get a guy that you bring in your backup, and let's say he has success, then going into the next game, is Tyler your starter or is this guy your starter? So I think by this early in the season, Tyler needed the reps. You know, what I mean, even though you might felt the game was lopsided, but what message is that sending to your team? I'm a football fighter. I'm a football player. I'm a fighter. I'm never out the game. So we're gonna stay and plug away and fight to the last whistle blow. So I didn't think he was out that game.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't think we were out of the game either.
Like that.
And Skyler needs the reps too. I mean, he's a relatively new quarterback for us. He's only played 4, 5, 6 games now.
Correct.
So
Right.
he needed that reps. He needed a
reps.
chance to try and right the ship, and I don't have any problems with keeping him
That's
in the game.
right. I agree
That
with you,
backup
Alex.
quarterback's always the most popular
Oh,
guy
until he plays.
on the team. And let's see the third string guy. How's he going to do?
That's right.
Scott, what answer you got for Mr. Bowen?
Well, you know, my thing is, I'm from the old school, and I come up under Coach Leland, which is a very conservative coach in terms of the way he does things. He has a concept, you ride it till the wheels fall off. Right. So my thing is, hey, I never got a break. I went from special teams to offense to whatever, and they almost put me on me from defense. I never actually ever came out the game. So I say let's ride Skylar until the wheels fall off. Now, I mean, that sounds kind of bad, but at the same time, he might need a break. But hey, man, if he's making some plays and things are going on in there, let's keep that guy in there. Let's get the points on the board.
Good point.
Let's get him a break or something. And listen, now from the old school, they ran the water out. We took a couple squirts in the water. And we kept playing. Now, JT, you know how that was. So I mean, we don't get no breaks. I'm just saying, I think at some point everybody needs a break. But if he's playing well and he's okay, let's go ahead and just keep pushing forward until we can make this game, make this thing happen.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
I don't know if you agree with that or not.
No. I'm gonna actually back you up here and say to Mr. Bowen, who sent the question in. Typically, what happens is the team never thought the game was out of reach. Although the score reflected 44-24, the game was certainly not out of reach. There were some things that happened that caused us to falter late, but the game was really never out of reach. So there was no reason to bring the starting quarterback out of the team. To do so, you would simply be saying to your team and to some of the fans that you've given up on your quarterback, and that's just something that you do not want to do. So I agree with you. Question number 2 comes from Monty Lester, and the subject is, how do you think the Mountaineers reacted this week? And here's the question. Considering it was Skylar Howard's first real big road game against a quality opponent, how do you think he will respond and perform this week versus another ranked opponent at home? Tone, I'll start off with you.
You know what, JT? I think Skylar will respond. This is not an easy test. It really isn't. Oklahoma State's a great club coming in here, but I got faith in Skylar. I think the game plan we're going to come in with is going to probably run it a lot. And if we can, maybe not put it in his hands a whole lot. I thought that even the coach said we kind of forced it a lot. We got behind, we wanted to throw it. Let our 2 big backs, last time I didn't call it big, but let our 2 backs kind of dictate the game. I like to see some play action.
Right.
And you talked about counter, you talked about some draws, but sometimes, you don't want to be complacent in this league. You want to show them different sets and different things. I would like to see us, control. You know what, JT, I want to go back to this. Our offensive line got kind of beat up this week in the paper. They kept saying, well, they gave up a lot of sacks. Let's put the ball in their hands and run the ball and say, you know what, O-line, we want you guys to win this game for us, big fellas. Win this game for us at home. I mean, I don't think Oklahoma State is that big up front. I know they got some players off the edges, but let's go smash mouth football and go at it and see what happens.
What you got, Alex?
Oklahoma State does some things very well that we're not very good at defending, at least based on that last game. They lead, I think, the nation in tackles for losses. We had a bunch of tackles for losses in the running game. They lead the nation in sack, and we gave up 7 sacks last week. So I think to parlay off of what you say, we need to protect him a little bit. We're going to have to max protect a little bit, leave some backs in, put some tight ends in the game. Don't give that end rusher such a short path to the quarterback and run the ball. Let's shorten the game a little bit. Don't put all the pressure on Skylar Howard where he feels like he has all the weight on his shoulders to win the game. Let him manage the game. Let him hand the ball off. We're starting to develop the running game. And I think if we're going to be a good team and win this year, it's not going to be because Skylar Howard's throwing it for 400 yards a game like Geno Smith did. It's because we're running it for 250 yards a game. We're passing the ball, and we're not turning it over, and we're playing solid defense.
Absolutely. Great answer. Mr. Dixon, what you got for me?
Just want to digress back to just Oklahoma State's defense. We're talking the 6'4" guy on one side, 6'5" guy on the other side. These guys are like bookends, man. So, I'm going with Alex. Man, we're going to have to we're probably going to have to put 2 tights in and really block like crazy. And not only that, but also send that fullback, man. Let's send him in and send somebody in his face, because at some point these guys are going to pinch off the end, and they're going to try to they might even get into a 6'3", a 6'4". Just put a front line up there and just come come at us. You know what I mean? They can tag, they can always take a defensive back, bring him up, and tag a tight end, and let that guy run off into the flat with him, and just put the pressure on, you know, on Skyler. And we have to be careful because, man, we haven't been real strong totally up front like we want to be. But hopefully this game we can recap and we can stay on the blocks, we can fire off the ball, get the hat going forward, and execute a lot better on the front line. But I'm definitely piggybacking with Alex in terms of them putting those two tight ends in there, and let's get these guys, man, to start really blocking on the ends to see if we can tie those ends up. Those guys are big and they're fast.
Right.
And if they get in, they can hurt us real bad in that backfield.
Absolutely. So Mr. Lester, I want to speak right to you, sir. Yeah, great question. I think you got a great question. Obviously, you're right. That was a big test for Skyler on the road against a quality opponent. And your question is, how do we think he will fare against OSU? I think early on the coach talked about how resilient this kid has been. He's come up a path, unconventional, different than most Division I quarterbacks. This kid is no quitter. This kid will bounce back. This kid, in my opinion, won't have a problem. He understands football. He plays football in Texas. The kid understands that you win some and you lose some. He knows how to brush himself off. He will get back on that horse, and I think you see another Skyler Howard back ready to battle again. And as Alex mentioned, if we keep the kid upright and safe and allow him to play football like he knows how, I think we'll be just fine. So, Mr. Lester, I want to thank you for your question, and it was a great question, and please do continue to send your question in. And you can send those questions to inthehuddle@thedpost.com. Again, you can send those questions to inthehuddle@thedpost.com, and we'll answer these questions online every show. Again, I want to thank Mr. Alfredo Bowen and Mr. Monty Lester for sending those questions. But for right now, here we want to ask you fans who are here in the building tonight, what questions do you have for our panel? Because we want to get you the answers that you need. All week long, I've been getting questions on Twitter, on Facebook, but to get your question answered, you need to be right here, right now. So if you want us to answer a question, raise your hand, we'll get the mics to you, and we'll answer the question to the best of our ability. Sir, we got one.
Shout it out.
Okay, let's deal with the Oklahoma game. So his question was, since we have not beaten Oklahoma in regular season play, did that have any emotional impact on our players? I'll let Tony start off with answering that question.
No, I think not. I mean, we did beat Oklahoma when we was on the big stage. We beat Oklahoma in that bowl game when I think it was 89% of America said we could not beat them. So we had success against Oklahoma in the past, and I think we're going to have some. We're going to continue to do that in the future. It was just one game, and I think we'll bounce back and we'll be okay. But that's a good question.
Yeah, I don't think our guys were intimidated. If anything, I think maybe they were a little bit overconfident early on, going in and doing all that chirping and chipping. You know, I don't care for that kind of stuff, especially when you don't back it up and you go get thumped after that and have 11 penalties. It kind of feeds into that whole undisciplined thing. So, you know, I'm not sure that the fact that they'd beaten us before caused them to beat us again. It's just we didn't play a very good ball game against a really good team.
Absolutely. What you got for us, Scott? Answer the man's question.
Well, I mean, I think any loss is going to be emotional. There's no way to actually, you know, to avoid that. I don't care what loss or what team you're playing, especially a team like Oklahoma. It's going to be a sight going into the game, period, point blank. But at some point here, it's going to mess with our emotion because that's what the game does. The game messes with your emotion. You know what I mean, Alex? Whether you win or lose, and we know when you win, you're going to be up high. It's going to be a high take. But when you lose, it's going to be emotional anyway, coming off of a loss. Right. So you know, it's definitely a great question. But at the same time, whether we play in Oklahoma or Kansas, we're going to have to strap up. And we have to play ball, and we want to win. And
I'm going to use an old additive that an old football coach said to me in regard to emotions. We're football players. We don't think, we just play football. So there's no emotion. We don't worry about any emotion. We don't think about anything. We play football. That's what we do. That's what we do. We play football. So ain't no emotions in it. We go out there, we do our job, and we go home. We lose some, we win some. But when we lose some, we go into the next game wanting to do better than we did the last game. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. Do we got time for one more question? One more question. Yes, sir.
I've seen the first 3 games, teams scoring 40-plus points, and then getting only in the low 20s this game. We know we got future games coming up against TCU, Baylor, those teams that are going to be scoring in the 60s. Do you see the Mountaineers being able to get those kind of points up anytime?
Good question. Now, the audience member question was, in the first 3 games, we've seen the Mountaineers score more than 40 points, averaging no more than 40 points a game. And to have a low outage in terms of them only scoring under 25 points this game, are we concerned that we won't be able to keep pace with teams like TCU, Baylor, and so on? I'll let you start off, Scott. Are we concerned?
I mean, to be honest with you, I think the Mountaineers, and I'm just not saying it just to say it, I think the Mountaineers can play with anybody in the country because I'm definitely a former Mountaineer. I think, man, at some point here, it's like any given Sunday, you can win. But I mean, coming into those games, this is going to be a tough schedule. All of these games that we get ready to play, I want to be optimistic and say, yeah, we could probably put as many points on the board that need to be as possible. But it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult. But I think home court advantage is going to play a very significant part in us being able to put those points on the board, as it relates to us being away. Now, of course, those couple games away, it's going to be real tough to be in their stadium and try to put up. I don't think they're going to allow us to do that. They wouldn't be the kind of team that they would be if they just allow us to go in there and just score 40 points a game. But I do believe if we get down and we start playing Mountaineer football, I don't think nobody in the country can beat us. And we have showed that from 1981 up into 2015 that we are not only we have a high rank of recruiting, in the last 15, 20 years, but we're a whole different ball club. We used to didn't have the respect that we have, and not everybody's chasing to beat us. We used to chase people to beat them. So I would say to you optimistically, yeah, I think we can do that. I think we can put 37 points up against the board on any one of those teams, and any given Sunday. But that's a really, really good question. Great question.
Great question. What you got, Tom?
Well, you know what? I'm coming from a different part of the spectrum. I am concerned. I seen the team last Saturday. They were shook up a little bit. They went after Scott, and they kind of showed us after we had lesser opponents that this is Big 12, baby, and you got to bring your A game every Saturday. And our offensive line was very leaky. We gave up a lot of sacks, and it's not going to get any better Saturday. You mentioned the 2 big boys coming off that edge. We got to get them blocked. But as far as scoring, I'm going back to I'm looking at these receivers, and I'm going to bite my tongue a little bit, and they're going to have to play a little bit better than what I see. I think everyone told me that they're the next, Kevin White. I didn't see that on Saturday. Now, granted, maybe they didn't run the best routes, or maybe Oklahoma has something to do with that as well. So I'm concerned. I am. I'm very concerned right now.
What you got, Alex?
I don't think the makeup of this team is suited to win shootouts from what I've seen so far. That we're going to have to play a lot better defense than what we played on Saturday. Clean up the penalties. We can't have 11 penalties. We can't have 5 turnovers. We can't have 7 sacks. Better defense, run the ball, shorten the game against these teams with these high-powered offenses where we're keeping their wide receivers and quarterbacks on the sideline while we're eating up clock and running the ball. I think that's what Mountaineer football used to be about. And if we're going to win these kind of games against these teams, I think that's what we're going to have to get back to.
Absolutely.
Hey, guys, I agree. Great question. Great question, because I think what happens is there becomes this expectation of how many points we're going to score, how well we're going to do. This is the Big 12. There's a lot of parity in the Big 12. There are a lot of good teams. Look at you start off with TCU. They played Minnesota. Minnesota's in that football game at the beginning of the game. And then you see them play Oklahoma State not too long ago and have a tough outing, right? There's a lot of parity in this Big 12. So to put a range on the scoring in terms of having, as Alex just mentioned, shootouts, I don't see it in the future for any particular team. All those teams aren't playing back-to-back. Now we're getting the Big 12 play where they're going to be playing against high-powered offenses and defenses. So I don't see those scores being that high consistently. Defense is at a high in the Big 12. So to answer your question, I think it's going to be tough for the Mountaineers as well as any other Big 12 opponents. Since we're in Big 12 play, to start putting up those 50-plus numbers. It's going to be a challenge. Again, thank you for your question. Great question. For all of those who have asked questions, we'll make sure you get these cozies. And if you don't drink or whatever, you can give them to somebody else. But guys, it's that time again. I want to thank, first and foremost, I want to thank you all for coming out once again here, watching us here at the Saberton Station. I want to thank my co-host, Avery Big Tone Richardson. Good to have you back. My good friend, Alex Shook. And my, not senior, but my seasoned good man, Scott Dixon. Again, guys, I want to remind you, we're here every Wednesday from 6 to 7. If you don't catch me here, make sure you go over to thedpost.com and check us out then. Guys, until next time, huddle up.